G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the battle rating 2.7 Ki-44. Now, this was a particularly short battle. Normally I wouldn't show battles like this alone, and I wouldn't show battles that were this one-sided. We had a J2M2 on our team at battle rating 3.3. Why those things are still at battle rating 3.3, I have absolutely no idea, but this was rather one-sided. Thankfully, I got an engagement that was away from that aircraft, and it had some interesting things to show and stuff that I sort of haven't covered before, or at least I haven't covered in detail. And what I'm going to be talking about from this one is why you engage aircraft from altitude. I know there is the standing mantra at the start of every battle, climb, 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 but a lot of people, especially newer players, don't actually understand why, what the reasoning is. Now the reasoning is of course the energy advantage and the tactical advantage, but that really needs to be explained in more detail, I think. Now, in War Thunder realistic battles, as a general rule, you will get matches that are nation versus nation, so two distinct aircraft types that are different from one another will engage one another in combat. And in almost every case, one aircraft will have an advantage over the other in some way. Depending on the aircraft that are involved, it could be an advantage of speed, it could be an advantage of energy retention, it could be an advantage of maneuverability, it could just simply be an advantage of raw firepower. When you engage an enemy aircraft at low altitude, we're talking sub 2,000 feet down to the treetops. As a general rule in that fight, whoever has the most powerful aircraft in the situation will win. If it's a low altitude chase, the fastest aircraft will win the engagement. If it's a maneuvering fight, the more maneuverable aircraft will win the engagement. The most powerful aircraft based on the engagement will always win, regardless of tactics involved. This is because the lower altitude you fly at, the more tactics are removed from the engagement. So for example, in a maneuvering fight, the most maneuverable aircraft will always win at low altitudes. However, if you are at a higher altitude, the less maneuverable aircraft may be faster and may be able to dive away, gaining more speed and being able to break a distance, removing itself from the engagement and from the threat. When you're flying at treetop level, you cannot dive away. It's just the ground beneath you. You dive, you die. You haven't got that option. That tactic has now been removed from your list of cards that you could potentially play in that particular battle. Now in this particular battle, I'm flying the first Ki-44 at 2.7. I'm engaging the P-40. The P-40 has superior firepower, it has better level flight energy retention, and it is faster in flight. However, I do have maneuverability on my side, and my firepower isn't bad. It's not brilliant, but it's not bad. The P-40s in this particular engagement also have a numbers advantage. I have one aircraft operating in the area, they have three P-40s and a Beaufighter, all operating close to one another. Now I could go down and just engage in a straight maneuvering fight. The Ki-44 is more than maneuverable enough to do that, but engaging multiple fighters at low altitude simultaneously will likely result in me being attacked by an aircraft that I didn't see coming while I was engaging a second aircraft and being killed as a result. Being at altitude above them gives me the option to use my dive speed to neutralise the speed gap between the two. So I'm not actually using my advantage in manoeuvrability here, I'm flying a slower aircraft and using it to outperform a faster aircraft. I'm boom and zooming an aircraft that is designed for boom and zoom while flying a turn fighter. Now if you watch back from the very start of this battle, my first pass I never pulled the guns. I simply dove on one target and then went vertical and took altitude again. This was to cause one of the P-40s to break away from the engagement, reducing the number of enemies that I had to engage at any given time. Since then I've been boom and zooming and just taking slight attacks on each aircraft until I had the opportunity to hit that P-40 there. I then used the dive speed from my dive to open a distance on an aircraft that is actually faster than me in order to generate a gap to pull myself out of their weapons range so that they can no longer attack me. And this has led to my first kill, despite the fact that I was engaging multiple aircraft simultaneously. Now I did take a hit in that particular pass, but it was only light damage to the wing, and I was easily able to outrun that particular attacker and put myself back in a safe location where I can turn back on the targets. And at this point I still have the option of engaging in a maneuvering fight, but I can use these tactics by manipulating my altitude in order to cut down the number of aircraft that I'm going to be engaging before I begin that close range turn fight, which I'm going to do now. There are actually only two aircraft remaining on the team, me and the guy that's now running back to base. There is one P-40 left. Now at this point, I'm going to use altitude against my enemy. I pull hard over vertical and I watch him. He's trying to fly up to me from a lower altitude. He kills his own airspeed and stalls himself trying to climb up to my position, which gives me the option of easily turning over, moving down to engage the enemy. At this point, with only one enemy remaining, it's safe to engage in a turn fight with zero risk, run the guns across him once, take the plane back into the vertical and loop it back over onto the P-40. Because he is down at the ground, he has no option. He cannot dive to try and outrun me, and I cut off his wing. And with those shots, that's the end of the match. So in a battle that contained multiple A6M20s, a J2M2 and one of the new A7M1s, which is possibly one of the most under-tiered premiums I've seen added to the game in some time, I still managed to pull second place for the team with 25,000 Silver Lions earned, 2,029 vehicle research points and modification research points earned on an aircraft that actually wasn't spaded at the time. I still had work to do on it, although this match most certainly finished those upgrades. Now the aircraft in first place was the A7M1 and it did get 4 kills, and you would expect it on an aircraft that I've seen successfully performing at battle rating 4. But second place on one of the lowest ranked fighters on my team, engaging multiple enemy aircraft, in fact the bulk of the enemy team, at the same time. That's the advantage that playing from altitude gives you. You don't necessarily have to have the best aircraft in the fight, but you have more tactical options with which to use your aircraft, and you can beat superior aircraft or superior numbers by using those options. Had this fight been reversed and the P-40s had been above me at the start of that engagement, I would have been forced into a turning battle with multiple enemy aircraft simultaneously. I would not have been able to use dive speed in order to outrun the dive performance and the level flight energy retention of the faster P-40. And as a result of not having that dive performance available to me to use, I also wouldn't have been able to break a gap from the enemy fighters and open the distance when the numbers got too close and too many bullets were flying in my direction. I would have had to have continued the engagement until they were dead or until I was. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.